The wind blows hard in December and it is still blowing. Please send help, it's so cold. Nintendo just dropped the newest trailer for Xenoblade X Definitive Edition, showing off some of the new quality of life, the bigger fonts, and of course that new juicy story content. That could be its own discussion, of course, but instead, I was thinking, I'd rather get some baggage out, before I can fully commit to being 100% excited for this game. There's just a little something else that I rarely see mentioned, and yet I think is gonna take a lot of people by surprise when they play this game for the first time on March 20th. You see, I made a video called The Truth about Xenoblade X, and it's basically about tempering expectations, just telling everybody, hey, there's a lot of stuff about this game that you might have not known, and it's better that you know it now. And the community has done a great job of letting everyone know that X is not a story-driven game. That's the #1 thing about it. That's why it was so divisive. But there's other things, specifically one thing that I forgot to mention, and part of me is ashamed because I do consider this, besides the fonts, besides the text, I do consider this to be X's greatest flaw. So part of me is ashamed, but another part is actually glad, because something of that magnitude really does warrant its own video. So previously I had mentioned the tutorials and how they're the absolute worst in the franchise, by far a significant mile, but it's not just about the tutorials themselves. The greatest flaw is the entire onboarding process. Not only are the tutorials bad, but the beginning of the game is very, very slow. And in fact, that's why I forgot about it. And I guarantee there are plenty of X fans up in arms right now because they've played hundreds upon hundreds of hours that the first handful have become a blur. Like, I think everybody who talks about this game has forgotten that beginning. Because, yeah, it's been a decade, and you haven't really played that part in a long time. But looking back, when that game first came out, I distinctly remember seeing a lot of people quit this game because of how lackluster the beginning is. It happened to one of my favorite streamers at the time. It even happened to one of my best friends. Now, before I go into exactly why, let me get this knee-jerk argument out of the way. I'm sure there's some of you already typing in the comments. You're already typing, well, Nara, you could say the same about the other Xenoblade games, and JRPGs as a whole. This genre has always been known for slow beginnings. Hell, Metaphor has a 5-hour prologue. And sure, you're not wrong, but there's one of two things that those games do, if not both, that Xenoblade X does not. The first of which being, they're actually telling good stories. So it's more understandable and tolerable as to why they're taking their time. Even if you aren't loving the pace, you're still invested in what's happening. The second is that they actually let you play the game. Who would have thunk? Metaphor's prologue might be long, but it isn't exactly slow because you get to play 3 mini dungeons. Xenoblade 1, you had Tephra Cave and the Colony Night Invasion. Xenoblade 2, you had the Ancient Ship and Gormont. Xenoblade 3's Chapter 1 is full of action all over the place. And with Xenoblade X, you got New LA, and therein lies the problem. Yes, you do technically start in the open world, but you can't really do anything until you enter New LA, where you are subject to what feels like an eternity of cutscenes. Like seriously, they hold your hands so you can slowly tiptoe your way to understanding what the city has to do to survive, and what it means to be a member of Blade, and what a residential district looks like. It just does not need to be that long of an introduction, and it's presented in the most mundane fashion, You know that saying, show, don't tell? Well, Xenoblade X be telling you. Xenoblade X be telling. I mean, think about how climatic the beginnings of Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 are. Even if they are slow, they make you optimistic for the rest of the adventure. With X, you're just happy to be done. You're just glad you can play the game now. To put it in perspective, I tend to beat games faster than the average person. Not because I'm better, but because I focus on making progress before I can dive into all the story content. So let me compare my own playthroughs of Xenoblade X and 2, both from 2019. And I'm using Xenoblade 2 because that's generally considered to have the slowest opening of the trilogy. Let's see where I'm at after a single hour of playtime. In 2, I am heading towards the end of the first dungeon, not bad. In X, I am watching a cutscene in New LA. Okay, could be a coincidence. How about we skip ahead 30 minutes? In 2, I have fully completed Chapter 1, while in X, I'm about to do a tutorial just outside of New LA. Hey, that's an improvement. How about another 30 minutes forward? Here I am exploring Gormott on the way to Torregoth, and here I am back in New LA watching more cutscenes. But if for some reason you don't trust my playthroughs, like if you think I'm biased or whatever, let's take a look at this playlist by Halcyonium. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. They essentially compile all of the cutscenes from the entire Xeno franchise, so you don't have to take my word for it. If we were to add up the runtime of every cutscene during this New LA tutorial extravaganza, 2 of which are 10 minutes on their own, then we have a stupefying total of 59 minutes! That means for the first 2 hours of the game, you are literally only playing half of the time! Now again, most X fans don't even remember how bad it is, and that's because in the long run, in the whole grand scheme of Xenoblade X, this is not an enormous deal. But it is a big one, especially today. Let's not forget, we live in a post-Breath of the Wild era. You can beat the Great Plateau in the time it takes to leave New LA. The standards have changed, not just for open world games, but for gaming in general. People don't like tutorials, people don't like hand-holding, people don't like slow beginnings. So when you have an open world game that is somehow worse in all of those respects compared to its JRPG brethren, that's not the best look. There's gonna be a lot of people so excited for Xenoblade X based on the trailers, based on all the hype, just to be instantly confused on how dull the first couple of hours are. It's not just the New LA tour, by the way. Unfortunately, there's a lot more cumbersome onboarding beyond that. And that brings me to the actual worst part about all of this. I personally cannot imagine any realistic way that this can be fixed in Definitive Edition. If it was Xenoblade 2, it'd be easy. Just rewrite the tutorial prompts and add a menu like Xenoblade 3. But for X, they would have to rewrite the cutscenes. And that seems extremely unlikely. Maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't bet on it. Or maybe there is a way that I'm not thinking of. Maybe they can abridge it somehow in a way that still feels natural. The only thing I'm confident in is that the Wii U gamepad manual will be native to the game, which, by the way, that's how bad the tutorials are. The game comes with a digital manual, and you still need YouTube videos to understand it. Unless there are some major improvements, the community needs to start warning people right now. It's not just the story, guys. It really isn't. Okay, I've gotten everything off my chest. I know it seems like I'm being a negative Nancy, but sincerely, I love this game so much. You can look at my reaction video. I was so happy. I just want people to know what they're getting into. because the more you know, the better chance you have of enjoying it. It's really just that simple. If you are a newcomer, I don't want you to be thrown off by these shortcomings. I don't want you to just not try the game at all because of it. I do recommend still trying it, and my number one piece of advice is to just simply keep pushing through it. Don't let the slow opening fool you. There's so much fun around the corner. And just like the other Xenoblade games, don't pressure yourself with the burden of understanding everything. If you're having fun just running around and exploring, then that's great. Everything else will come with time. And even if Definitive Edition doesn't vastly improve the tutorials, there's plenty of resources available online. It's already there. As long as you are intrigued in that open world, it is worth sticking around. You just have to hang in there. Xenoblade X should be defined not by the first few hours you tolerated, but by the hundreds that'll pass before you even know it. So please, when March 20th comes around the corner, please give it a try if you are interested, but keep my words in mind, because I really do want as many people to go into this game with the right mindset, so we can all just be Xenoblade X fans together. That sounds pretty great, if you ask me. And then we can talk about all the new story content and yada yada yada. That's one thing I forgot to mention. Real quick, they're adding cutscenes. It's not just an epilogue. It seems like there are more cutscenes, which means the intro might be longer. The intro might be longer for all we know. So yes, just keep that in mind. Go into March 20th, a proud believer in this game, but also with a little bit of patience. That's all I ask. So thank you all for watching. I hope to see you in the next video, whenever that is. I might just wait for the next trailer, to be honest, because Switch 2, surely Switch 2 is going to be revealed soon, and I should probably focus on that for the time being on my channel. So yeah, regardless, have a good day or night, and I will see you when the wind continues to blow in February, and then finally March. Have a good one, guys.